And we are live. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Kosmographia, the Randall Carlson podcast, and we are live. Randall, good to see you again. Brad, Randall, you got
howdy, Texans.
you got plans for tonight, Randall? Or are we going to take questions?
Well, we'll do a little of both. I mean, there's some interesting things we could talk about. I got a few things to look at, things that I think we may have touched on very briefly or not at all.
All right.
And we could
Sounds
look at
good.
some of that. But we should probably catch up a little bit on what we've been up to.
Yeah.
I know you guys, let's see, how long has it been since you've been back from Egypt now? Been a while. Couple of months? You haven't been back that long, have you?
Well, Ben just went, but
Ben went to
they
Egypt.
didn't go.
Yeah, we didn't go this time. Yeah.
When are you guys headed back?
We're going in February.
Okay. So
And,
coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, and it's going to be
too.
Brad's
I'm going back.
Yeah.
Somehow I'm going. Figure it out day by day.
Yeah, and this is going to be a long trip this time for us.
What does that mean?
I think 6 weeks we're going to be over there.
6 weeks?
Oh, no
Yeah,
kidding.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
Yeah, we're still working out the details, but we had
Double tour.
We had a Lebanon extension for the Egypt trip, and then now we can't go to Lebanon. So instead, we're adding a second tour in Egypt. So we're just going to do them back to back. Should be fun.
So for the second tour, will you be revisiting some of the same sites?
Yeah, it's going to be the same itinerary.
Yeah.
Same itinerary. Well, I mean, that gives you more time to dive into. I mean, when I went through, there was just never enough time at each site.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
You know?
I mean, people spend their entire lives at a single site,
Yeah.
Studying it and stuff. So, yeah, it's
True.
It's amazing, but to really dig into it,
Mm-hmm.
you could spend days and days at a single site videoing and
Years. You
exploring.
could
Years,
spend
I mean,
years
yeah.
at a single temple in some of these places.
Yeah. Now, will you guys be going with Ben?
Yes.
I would say that's Ben Uncharted X, Ben Van Kerkwick,
That's
host
right.
of Uncharted X.
That's
for
right.
people,
Yeah.
just in case they didn't know of whom we were speaking.
So yeah, they've got so many people that were on a waiting list. They just have a whole nother tour ready to go. People just right.
Well, we'll see.
Put the deposit
We'll
in
see
and
what
let's
happens.
go. Let's go, y'all. Yeah. If the whole crowd's there, can you take 50? What's your numbers?
I think 60 is max, probably. Yeah.
Oof, yeah, max.
Yeah.
And then do you use buses, vans? What do you have
buses,
for?
yeah.
Buses, vans, boats, planes, we use it all.
Yeah, it's true.
Camels.
Balloons.
Yeah, balloons. There's a balloon ride. Camels, donkeys. It all gets used, Randall. It's Egypt.
Chariots.
Pretty awesome.
Chariots. That's right.
Everything.
Horse-drawn chariots.
Yeah.
Yes.
Gotta go,
I gotta
Randall.
see that.
Come on.
I gotta see that. I gotta see Russ in a chariot with his in his loincloth and Birkenstocks. In a chariot. That would complete the image.
We definitely got to get you there.
Yeah.
God,
Yeah.
dang it. It would be awesome.
I'll get back there. Then we had a little bit more modest field trip here, tour a few weeks ago. Spent a week up there in eastern Kentucky exploring the landscapes hidden under the canopy of the forests there, which a lot of people don't see. And we stayed in a very nice retreat center called Beersheba Springs.
Ooh,
That had
I
quite
was in central Tennessee.
Yeah, that was in central Tennessee. What did I say?
You're eastern Kentucky.
Did I say eastern Kentucky?
You're in the upper Cumberland tour. Yeah, we did a middle Cumberland. Yeah.
Ooh, yeah, boy, I'm
Roops.
Roops. Yeah, eastern
Okay.
Eastern Tennessee. I had Kentucky on my mind from something earlier, and yeah, so it was eastern Tennessee, the Cumberland Plateau area, which is a very interesting landscape. Geomorphologically speaking, it's very interesting. And learning about the physiographic regions of that area, from the Blue Ridge to the Valley and Ridge Province to the Cumberland Plateau to the Nashville Basin. What an interesting history. But that was before our time. So, yeah, there's been some interesting things going on.
Yeah, we got in some impressive caves.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Went to a bunch of waterfalls, but they were not impressive with water, but still some large cataracts, some big undercut areas, sections beneath them where there was once a large waterfall. But yeah, it was barely a trickle at most of them this time of year, unfortunately. Great group of people again, as always. Filled it up. We kind of max out about 30. Seems to be plenty. Try to wrangle around. But yeah, I had 5 days there. Like you said, stayed at Beersheba Springs. Nice little retreat center there.
That was
probably go back.
Quite a contrast, because then the last weekend I was in Las Vegas in the Luxor Hotel. And that was different. We've been to Vegas before, like Brad and I have been there, but we're pretty much using the airport and getting the hell out of Dodge so we can get out into the landscapes and stuff. So I'd never really spent much time there, other than there was the time that I do remember we had gone out for a walk around the city, and I think it was 2 or 3 ladies mistook me for Jerry Garcia. So maybe they weren't aware of the fact that Jerry had passed away. So I went ahead and let them think I was Jerry Garcia, and we took all our pictures together and so on. And so somewhere in the world today, there are 3 ladies showing off pictures. Pictures they had with Jerry Garcia.
It's like you're starting the Elvis didn't die conspiracy thing, right? Jerry Garcia is still alive.
He was seen
photo evidence.
Las Vegas. But yeah, stayed in the Luxor Hotel. Have you guys ever been there? You know, the whole
the big pyramid
yeah.
Been inside. I haven't stayed in it, but
I haven't been in.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive, but it's just not my cup of tea.
You don't like pyramids?
No, I hate pyramids.
Man.
No, I like pyramids, but not when it's filled with a bunch of degenerate drunks and gamblers and I don't know. Somehow there seemed to be some kind of a disconnect there.
Sponsored by a fishing boat company or something.
Needs to be full of bats.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun though, and you know what? I got nominated. We had the Sunday night. It was the gala dinner and award ceremony, the black tie affair. It was kind of like I don't know what do you call it? Not the
Let's
new
see photos.
Yeah, the very very sort of a variation on the Academy Awards or whatever. So I got nominated with you guys. So I got to tell you guys, this is the Kosmographia podcast, right? And even though I was there to receive the award, you guys weren't there. You could have been up on stage with me, but yeah, I was nominated and I won. The Kosmographia podcast won for most outstanding out of this world podcast for 2023.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Congrats, man, for sure.
Yeah, well, it's not just me, okay? This is what I'm trying to say here. And I got I
think this is in the geology category.
Shungite, I believe Shungite, a stone I was not familiar with. Very heavy, dense stone, replica of the pyramid, right? Ooh. With the nice engraving on it. I didn't bring it back. Laura's going to bring it back for me when she comes east. But yeah, I just she offered that, and I should have actually now brought it back. I could have shown it off, but I didn't want to bring it in my. I didn't want to have to go through checking it in, and just in case something happened to it, and I didn't want to carry it in my luggage because it was.
I understand. The first time we went to Egypt, we came back. I bought. We purchased for a bunch of our podcast supporters. We purchased 50 small stone pyramids.
Yeah.
Oh.
And put them in my luggage, and then of course it goes through the scanner, and it looks really strange. And they start freaking out, and I'm like, hey, it's just little pyramids. It's not an explosive.
No, it's not. But it was a lot of fun, and I went up there and I accepted the award graciously, and thought I'd never really characterized it as an out of the world pod or out of this world podcast. But I guess, we talk about a lot of astronomical subjects and cosmic things. So, but anyway,
competition. Who else was nominated? Who
there
did you
was
get to rub it into?
Well, there was a few
or
more.
Did you?
I don't remember who the other ones were. It's in the program. I have a program here, but it's not within reach. So, but yeah, I mean, there was 3 nominations, and I emerged the victor.
That's great.
I dominated.
Thank you for speaking well for all of us.
Yes. Yeah. Appreciate that.
Yeah. And we had a good panel discussion. Myself, Scott Wolter, Tim Hogan. You know who Tim is, right? Tim. He's the Grand Master of the International Order of the Templars. And he's well connected in Egypt. He does tours there. I almost thought that him and Ben need to collaborate.
Okay.
Yeah.
He wasn't the one that we had on this show recently, was he?
Yeah, on the live show.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, look at that. There it is.
Nice.
What does it say on there exactly? It says
you can ask it a question and it'll give you flip it over.
Yeah, you flip it over. Yeah, and the answer to your question floats to the surface.
Stairway to the Stars at the Luxor. Randall Carlson is presented with the 2023 Out of This World Podcast Award. Disclosure Fest, something, and Fade to Black.
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
We've made it. We've made the big time, guys.
All right. Awesome.
I just see a reflection of us in the screen.
Yeah, you guys around sitting on the side of it.
Well, okay, so that's that news. I did not do any gambling at all while I was there. In case
Randall really wanted to meet Carlos Santana. I think that was what actually convinced him to go, and they kind of did a bait and switch on him.
Drink some Santana Champ.
No, I didn't get to meet Carlos Santana, but I did get to meet one of his guitars.
Aha.
And it was a giveaway. They had some kind of a contest, and actually somebody won. Maybe it was a raffle. So somebody did win Carlos Santana's guitar.
Wow.
Oh, it wasn't an auction. It was a prize. Okay, well, that's cool.
Yeah. And they also had Robbie Krieger's guitar. You know who he is? You wouldn't know who he is. He was the guitarist for the Doors.
I was going to say Doors, but I thought that was the organ player, but I don't remember.
No, that was Ray Manzarek.
Yeah, well, it's coming back. Don't think about them very often.
Yeah, have you guys ever heard of the Doors?
I have.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. All right. Well, I guess if you've at least heard of them, I won't give you a hard time. Yeah, what else? There's nothing else to report there. Yes. Oh, the panel discussion was real good, I thought. Jimmy sort of, has his own agenda, and he asks questions, and then he'll ask a question, and each of us would answer, give our interpretation of whatever it was he was asking about. But I think all of this is available. And then I did an 1.5-hour interview with some folks up there in the penthouse of the Luxor. That was interesting, going up there. What else? And then the last day before we left, Laura and I went out and we did some exploring. She showed me some places very interesting that I'd like to get back to, like the Valley of Fire and some of the
Lake Mead.
Yeah, over by Lake Mead. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And that was interesting. Want to get back and see some of that. So let's see. What should we
well, we have a bunch of questions and comments already coming in, and our buddy Kyle DeLille just donated $100 Canadian, saying, for making the big time with an award.
Thanks, Kyle.
Good to hear from you, man.
He says the girl mentioned something about a check?
Question mark?
Wait, what was that?
That's what Kyle said. In parentheses.
Something about what?
The girl mentioned something about a check?
Meaning what? What's the implication here?
I'm not sure. He must be implying something, and I'm not sure.
Well, obviously, I'm not sure what it is.
Maybe that
Thought
there's
he was
money
Jerry
that,
Garcia.
maybe that there's money that goes with the award, but they're going to mail you a check.
Oh, okay.
Trust me, the check's in the mail.
I mean, you said something about a girl, right?
Yes.
And a check. So, no.
It's
no, I
Canadian
didn't.
humor. We're never going to get it.
Okay.
But not a
Well,
Czech
just
girl.
to clarify, no, I did not in any way indulge in anything while in Nevada that would involve money and a girl, okay? Just so we're clear on that.
I think Brad had a theory that maybe he was referring to you taking pictures with girls who thought you were Jerry Garcia. Maybe there was something about a check.
Oh. Well, okay, I will confess that I did have my photograph taken with a lot of ladies. And I did not initiate it. But a lot of people in general. I realize now that's a big part of doing these things, these photo ops. I don't know what becomes of these pictures and photographs, but hey, I don't mind.
It's on their Instagram.
There may come a day where I'm sick of it, but
DeLille says it's a reference to the Grinch, which means I'm not sure what it is.
yeah. Those Canadians, they can be obtruse sometimes.
Bro,
that didn't help.
You need to work on your humor.
Oh, Kyle.
So anyway, there's a whole bunch more.
Thank you, Kyle.
Well, let's see if I wonder if any of those questions actually sort of converge with some things I thought we'd take a quick look at.
All right. Well, first one from Margaret, $20 says early bedtime for me. Go Cosmo, go. So thank you, Margaret. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Margaret.
Thanks, Margaret.
David Stig Hansen, $20 says we look forward to the wisdom. Thank you, David.
Okay.
And then Andrew, $20 says dates for the 4 ages or catastrophes of the worlds. 1, flood 9200 BC. 2, fire 10,800. 3 ? 4 ? Best guess earliest date for founding of Atlantis.
Oh, earliest date for founding of Atlantis. Okay, I think I actually have had some thoughts on that, because what we would have to be looking at is when did the last major glacial expansion occur? Because when that glacial expansion is occurring, sea level is lowering, and that is, uncovering the Azores Islands, and if it's enough lowering, it may even cause isostatic rising of the Azores Plateau. So I would put the earliest between 26 and 30,000 years, because that, with the onset of the late glacial maximum between that period, also the late Wisconsin is dated to between 26,000 and 30,000 years. Now, again, but I don't know, like we've talked extensively about the vertical movement of the crust along the mid-Atlantic ridge being related to the rising and falling of sea level, right? We have pretty good evidence in hand that there was a major glacial expansion that began to occur between 26 and 30,000 years ago. Usually in the North American version of that expansion is the Wisconsin Ice Age, right? Or late Wisconsin, right? Late Wisconsin. So sea level is falling. So that would be a time, number one, the islands themselves, even without isostatic adjustment, the islands would roughly double in size, right? Which would make it a pretty benign place to live during the Ice Age. Now, if there was isostatic movement, which I think is highly likely, because remember your beach ball analogy. If the ice is building up at the poles, it's squashing the Earth, bulging around the mid-range, the equatorial and mid-range latitudes, right? So if you've got that lowering of sea level, reducing the weight, you've got the bulging on the North American around the polar regions, it's very likely that there would have been vertical movement upwards, right? So at the point that the ice has pretty much reached its maximum, say between 23 and 26,000 years ago, the LGM was pretty much established according to the most recent dating between 23, 24, 25,000 years ago. At that point, you probably would have had a an inhabitable region there along the Azores area. So if Azores was in fact what gave rise to the legend of Atlantis, and I would argue, and I want to make it clear, I have never said that I thought that was Atlantis. What I have said, though, is that if we look at all of the candidates for Atlantis that have been proposed, easily a dozen different places, easily, and we look at that in the context of Plato's detailed relating or accounting of the legends, what I am saying is that the Azores region, consistent with Plato's details and consistent with empirical data that we know that I've gotten into in depth, that is the most likely location for a real Atlantis, if there was one. Okay. And there's the lecture, the 2-part lecture, like over 9 hours, where I'm backing that claim up with actual evidence, multi-proxy evidence from detailed analysis of Plato's dialogues and so on. So to make a short answer of that, I would say between 25 and 30,000 years ago is when it became inhabitable, and that would have given a time span of conservatively 10,000 years for Atlantis to evolve into whatever status it was. At the time, it had the power to, invade the Mediterranean regions to try to subjugate the people in the lands and people and cultures inside the Mediterranean. And if we wanted to further speculate outside of details that Plato doesn't give, if there is that degeneration of the Atlantean people, the Atlantean culture, from this high spiritual awareness and wisdom and so on into this imperialistic warmongering state, perhaps you could blame that on the fact that there were 3 sea level pulses, and the third one is the one that ultimately caused the decline, the final subsidence of Atlantis. But if you were an island-based culture, I mean, think about now, like the Maldives, where the Maldives are going to be destroyed. It's going to be a catastrophe because sea level is going to rise a couple of feet by the end of the century, right? So there's that concern about modern island nations. Well, if you were an island nation at the end of the last ice age and sea level was rising dozens and then hundreds of feet, undoubtedly it would cause severe stress. Also, the fact if that rising sea level is causing an increase in seismicity, that will add. And so you would think that what would happen if you had an island nation that was attempting to adapt to sea level rise? What would you do? Well, you would build seawalls. But, if you're going to build extensive seawalls, you've got to have a gigantic labor pool to execute such a monumental undertaking. And perhaps that would then be a motive of why you would go abroad in search of slaves. And that's exactly what Plato describes, is that they were enslaving the pre-Hellenites and the ancient Egyptians and all these other people that were inside the Mediterranean. So there we go. That's my answer. That's it. But, we don't know. I don't have enough data to come to any definitive conclusions. That's all speculation. But it's speculation based upon, some sound information that we know pretty well. So I would say, yeah, think about it, 26 to 30,000 years ago, if in that window was the founding of the Atlantean culture, then you had at least conservatively 10,000 years for that culture to evolve.
So you still thinking about doing a part 3 for that Atlantis series? You did a part 1 and part 2 was about 6.5, 7 hours. So I think you said 9 hours. So I think you got to have part 3 to get that 9 hours. But yeah, between episodes 3 and 10, there was probably 10 plus hours on the podcast.
Yeah. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of, that we did close to 10 hours just on the Cosmographia podcast.
Yep. Well, yeah. So part 3
if you got
coming in 2024, that'd be good.
Yeah, that would be good. Very good. Yes. But that was a good question. What else you got there?
Caney McSots, I think. Sorry if I messed that up. $20 says, Randall, I'm also a local Georgian. I'm curious your thoughts on is this Etowah or Etowah Indian Mountains?
Etowah, the Etowah Indian Mounds. Yeah, well, that's certainly part of that monumental earthwork complex. Here in Georgia, we have not only Etowah, but the Okmulgee and the Kolomoki. And so Georgia was an important location for the mounds. And like so many of the mounds, it's interesting. I don't know if I've got something, probably do have something handy that I could pull up on that. But yeah, as a matter of fact, I probably should, just for because this is really interesting stuff. Let's see here if I have something handy. Earthwork architecture. I think I've got something right here. We can pull up an image of the Etowah Indian Mounds, and I gotta show you this. Okay,
we did post a video just last week or 2 weeks ago now that was a prior live show, and you're talking about the different solstice points and all the constructions around the planet that were identifying those and having notches and hills across the way. So yeah, Etowah is shown in there. So there's a recent video if you go on the channel and check out some of the previous live clips.
All right, you guys seeing this? America's Lost Civilization, The Secret of the Great Earthworks?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Oh, right. Well, I have to press the share button first, don't I? Okay.
2 or 3 times. There
now I think you can see it.
Now we see it, yes.
Yeah. Check this out. Now, I want you to check out this guy standing up here. Kyle, can you recognize him?
I do. He has a very he has a very Bradish way of standing.
Yep, you got it. That's Bradley.
You
remember to take that
not
shot?
My forehead up there. That's the moon.
I remember setting up this shot. Yeah, I don't know if you remember that, Brad, but I've always loved this shot. This is a great one. Because they had just cleaned the trees, because not long before this, the thing was overgrown with trees. You couldn't really see the profile. But this is the Great Mound at Etowah here. And let's see.
All right, so yeah, that's not the one over by St. Louis.
No, that's not.
That would be bigger. That would be bigger. Yeah, Cahokia. Yeah,
that's Etowah, which is pretty impressive.
That's
at
right.
its
They
original
took all the trees
height.
off.
Yeah, at its original height, it was about 70 feet tall. But let's see. So I was going to
You too can travel with Randall Carlson and be scale man.
Where are we at here? Okay, so
Scale person, however that might be.
Let's see what I've got
I think
here.
Brad might be planning to steal that moon. That's why he's up there. Is that what's happening?
Here we go. Let's see here.
Fortunately,
Yeah.
there's not video of me jumping.
All right, so let me see. Go here.
I don't know. Maybe me and Jesse rolled down that thing.
I think you did. I remember something like that. Okay, so I'm going to go to slide 40. Let's see. This is Okmulgee. Okay, here we go. There it is. So there is the Great Mound at Etowah before the trees were removed. And here's an aerial view. Here's the Great Mound. You can see how overgrown it was getting. And then mounds C and B. I think it's Great Mound is A, C, and B. And interestingly, there's a summer solstice sunrise alignment. Let's see, maybe I have it here. Let's see. If you stand at the center of this mound over here is just to the east, it's just a little higher. So what it does is it makes a flat reference line right at the level of the horizon. And in the far distant horizon, there's a V shape, a saddle between the hills, and the alignment of the of these structures lines up with that saddle in the hills. And here, this is interesting because you can see in the construction, this is the Etowah River. And what they did, even though it's been filled in, the earth that they used to create the mounds, and there was a lot more mounds than there was many smaller mounds. You can actually see their shadows where there was other mound structures. This was the Great Plaza out here. And what they did is they excavated a ditch. And you can see it connected with the river here, and it circled around and reconnected here. So they used the earth material out of this ditch to construct the mounds, and then the ditch was flooded. And so it, in a sense, almost created like an island with flowing water around it on all sides. And I think that might have been a key to part of its purpose and functioning. It's because so many of these mounds, if not all of them, seem to be associated with water. And usually it's running water of rivers and creeks and so on. Let's see what else we have.
Help them catch more fish.
Perhaps there would be a more prosaic reason such as that. I don't know. All right, there we go. That's the Great Mound A, Mound B, and Mound C. So that alignment right here goes to that. So large mound. Now this is interesting. Okay, so the large mound A, this was written back, published in the Bureau of Ethnology between 1890 and 91. The Great Mound A, this one right here, truly a grand and remarkable structure. A careful survey of it was made in 1884 by Mr. Victor Mindeleff. It will be seen that the highest point is 66.5 feet, which I think, if with a little bit of tweaking, would be basically 66.6 feet. The longest diameter is 380 feet. The diameter right angles to this is 330 feet. And the area at the base is a little less than 3 acres. From these dimensions is easy to calculate with approximate certainty the cubical contents of the mound, which we find to be, including the roadway, about 4,300,000 cubic feet. So that would have been quite a laborious exercise.
Maybe if you tweaked it a little bit, it'd be 4,320,000 cubic feet.
Yes. Well, I was going to say that, but I didn't. I thought, well, somebody might think I'm getting just a little too out there, a little too extreme. But yeah, really, you tweak that a little bit. But then that would mean, of course, Kyle, that they're measuring in cubic feet.
True.
But yeah, and if you figure, if you're a person carrying Earth in a basket, you're probably not carrying over half of a cubic foot. It would take a big, strong guy to carry a whole cubic foot of Earth.
That would be
very
heavy.
So that means you're up there looking at nearly 10 million baskets of Earth. When did these guys find time for that? You know,
you always hear that. Oh, these hunter-gatherer types, they just did all this stuff in their spare time.
Yeah,
as though you had loads of spare time when you were not surviving.
And you don't have a job, right? You just can do whatever you want.
And huge armies of laborers. Well, anyways.
What's a 5-gallon bucket? That's probably pretty close to a cubic foot.
Yeah, that's probably pretty close.
5-gallon bucket full of dirt's pretty heavy.
It is.
It'd be heavy, yeah.
All right, here we are. Let's see. We'll go back. We're up on Mound C, looking over Mound B, and here you can see it. There's our man Bradley, scale man. He's standing right at the center of Mound C. I'm standing at the center of Mound B, and right behind him is this saddle in the hills. And if I was here on summer solstice sunrise morning, that sun would be rising right here. So and I've never seen anybody say anything about a solar alignment here. We just were out here one time and decided to check it out. And there it is. So yeah, so there's Mound B, taken from the top of the Great Mound A. And there's the Etowah River in the background. And here you can see sort of a remnant of the ditch. Pretty substantial ditch, and quite long. And so now you have to dig the earth up here, and then you have to carry it over here. And, that 404,320,000 cubic feet, that's just the large mound. There was a whole bunch of other smaller ones. This was found there. I always thought this was very interesting. This gorget was found in the excavation of the Etowah Mound complex.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of that before.
It's pretty famous, but the rattlesnake, So you got to wonder, did the rattlesnake mean the same thing to the indigenous peoples associated with the Etowah mounds as it did to the Mayans? Because to the Mayans, there was no ambiguity about it. The rattlesnake was their symbol for the Pleiades. So that's a little bit about the Etowah mounds. I hope that. Who asked the question?
Let me see.
That's Cartersville, Georgia. What? Not quite an hour northwest of Atlanta.
Cartersville,
or
Georgia.
Maybe right at an hour.
Yeah.
Kaney McSots asked the question.
Okay,
Kaney.
What was the question again?
Randall, I'm a local Georgian. I'm curious on your thoughts on the Etowah Indian mounds.
Okay, well that's not all my thoughts, but that's some of the thoughts. Yeah, I mean the thoughts. If I were going to get into it more, we'd be speaking about the whole phenomena of monumental earthwork architecture, strewn throughout the Ohio River Valley, the Mississippi River Valley. Here, the Etowah, I believe, is a tributary to the Chattahoochee, I believe, which then drains into the Gulf of Mexico. So, yeah, at some point, I guess it'd be interesting to get more into the whole phenomena of the earthwork architecture, which is quite extraordinary when you consider what used to be there, what used to be here when the Europeans first arrived that is now gone. Because what's left, which is pretty impressive, is probably not even 10%, maybe 5% of the earthworks that were here, in the 16 and 1700s. And this is, anybody's interested in it more, you can't do better than getting the reprint of Squire and Davis's incredible surveys that they did of the extant earthworks at the time. Like, this is directly out of the Squire and Davis book. And there's some very, very interesting correlations when you start diving in, particularly the geometry and the orientation of these structures. And you begin to realize the scale of this phenomena. It's incredible when you realize the amount of work. Now, this may be, check this out. This may be ringing some bells, Kyle. Look at the side of the square here. 1,080 feet.
Yes, sir.
You ever seen that before?
I have.
Yeah. Look at the perimeter of the square then. 4,320.
Yeah.
So there's, but again, that's in feet. So
I know.
Okay, so this is a coincidence.
But also acres. I mean, like there's a number of these mounds that have. Brad's yelling at somebody. That have, they show the acreage on the inside. I know you can see them there. The big circle's like 40 acres. The other one's 27. But there's a number of them where the acreage inside is a significant number. And the circle, the acreage inside a circle matches the acreage inside a square.
Yes.
So they were squaring the circle with
the
it.
circle.
I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah. So this is not just, hey, let's do this and we're randomly piling up. This is extraordinarily precise geometry, extraordinarily precise astronomy.
Yeah.
So, what's going on here? We did this one.
Awesome.
This is an awesome one. Yeah. And again, always the presence of water. That seems to be a ubiquitous component of this thing. So, yeah, this is in Alabama. This is worth a visit. And this morning that we got here, apparently over the weekend, some low-life drunks were in here spinning wheelies and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Doing spinnies in the field. Yep.
Doing spinnies in the field. And I'm thinking, now right there's no way that I'm the same species as the perpetrators of this. They have to be a different species altogether. They maybe look sort of like, bipedal hominids, but we're not the same species. And there's the big mound at, now this is interesting. This is the one at Moundville, but what's interesting about this is many of these flat top truncated, it's well known that they held structures, temple structures, usually constructed of timber that have long since decayed away. But when you add the temple structure to the top of these truncated pyramids, it becomes very Mayan-esque, with the difference that many of the truncated pyramids in Yucatan and Central America, of course, are built out of stone rather than earth, and the temples on top are also built of stone. But the geometry is very, very similar. And this is walking up to the top of it. So this was found, here's your spider motif found during the Moundville excavations. In some respects, some of the things that are uncovered and excavated are almost as interesting in their own way as the mounds themselves, because they're so clearly contain layers of meaning that are not obvious upon first observation. You know, is this Spider Woman? You know, that we hear about Spider Woman weaving her web of creation in the Hopi accounts. Is this a parallel here? I don't know. But, and you guys have been to Emerald Mound, right?
I don't think so.
Okay, this is an impressive mound structure.
Yeah, the raised platform itself is incredible.
Oh yeah, well check this out. Here's a photograph. That's the raised platform. You can see it in scale relative to the SUV there. I mean, think about how much work was that? You know, now, and what's the motive? What are they trying to accomplish by undertaking such monumental scale projects? I don't
that'll
think
keep you out of a flood, maybe.
Well, it possibly could, yeah. This is right along Natchez Trace in Mississippi. And then there's the large mound on the western end. And you can see it had a ramp going up, which I think is only a remnant of what would have been the ramp is still there. And then this is looking the other direction. But that sucker is bigger than a football field up on top.
Randall, our buddy Peter, just came into the chat and donated $358. No comment. Thanks, Peter. Wow. Really appreciate it, man.
Peter.
Pete is everywhere.
Yeah, Pete is a fantastic supporter.
Bud. Yeah, he is. Peter
is the best. And we hung with Peter up in the Cumberland, and it was, it took me a while to really get and understand Peter's sort of wry and dry sense of humor.
Why? Because it's the same as yours? Like, very wry and dry?
Yeah, similar. Yes. Yeah, and so here we are. This is, let's see, is that you down there, Brad?
No,
that's just maybe some wandering lost soul that came up out of the woods. Oh, that's Kostadin. Okay. He was one of our Bulgarian workers. And so you can see, I mean, I'm standing on top looking down. This is a big pile of dirt here, guys.
Yes, that would take forever if you're using machines. That's a huge undertaking.
Yeah. And then, of course, Cahokia. Now, you guys have been there, right?
I have not. Got to go there.
Oh, we got a mound tour we need to do.
Yeah, we definitely need to do a mound tour.
That would be, yeah. Riley and I've done a couple of them, and yeah.
A lot of people asking for that.
Well, let's do it. Yeah, Cahokia. There you can see the layout. And again, you see the proximity of flowing water. Of course, you could say, well, there's a practical reason for that. Obviously, you want to have flowing water. But I think there may have been another reason it's not quite so obvious. And we'll talk about that in a future at some point. And this is Teotihuacan in Mexico City. I just for comparison, you know, and here again, like I'm talking, you know, you look at these truncated step pyramids, you look at this, and the geometry underlying this is very similar, if not identical, to some of the geometry you see underlying the earthworks. The orientations, the same, the astronomical orientations. And this will give you a sense of how massive the Monk's Mound is at Cahokia. Look at this. Now is a damn big pile of dirt right there. And when you're up on top, what it does is it gives you kind of a nice flat, and of course it's been eroded, but in its pristine condition, it would have been a nice flat layer viewing platform. And I just stuck this in to give you the idea, is that you could use this as an observing platform for watching motion of the sun, the moon, the stars, the rising, the setting points, all of that. And I suspect strongly that that was one of the functions of why you would build something like this, is because basically when it was new and you were up on top, you had a 360-degree flat horizon all the way around.
That's awesome.
Yeah, okay. So we'll end
Not
that
far
there.
from the Mississippi River, so you got the floodplain out there, so it's
Yeah.
low and flat for long distances, so you see maximum horizon.
All right.
Horizon, however that would go.
What else we got?
Good stuff.
So
I love this stuff.
Darren Wheats donated $14.40 twice, and he's asking about, let's see, he says, my nephew found a meteorite, very dense, very magnetic, and then he gives coordinates. And then he says, can you look at this location and a trajectory? And again, he gives coordinates. I think this is a meteorite, but I need some Randallistic input on the matter.
Okay, well, I don't have a SEC, scanning electron microscope, SEM, I mean, to determine. It could be. I mean, obviously meteorites are dense. So is other stones, black stones. Oftentimes magnetite gets mistaken for meteorites. So I don't know. Let me go ahead and give me the coordinates. If he's got them, I'll write them down. I will check it out on Google Earth.
Okay. 42 degrees, 22 minutes, 4 seconds north. 96 degrees, 5 minutes, 32 seconds west.
32 west?
Right.
Okay. All right. I don't think I'll do it right now.
Right,
I just
second, yeah.
Right,
but are there other ways, like, so if somebody is wondering if they found a meteorite, are there good ways for them to figure it out? I mean, can you take it somewhere?
Yeah, take it to
you can take it.
Maybe.
If it's,
most universities will have the instrumentation to determine whether or not it's a meteorite or a meteor wrong.
Yep.
Right.
Call a local college.
Our buddy Chuck,
geologist.
The geologist, sent us a thing that was basically like, if you think you found a meteorite, you haven't found a meteorite. It was a whole infographic on how to tell that it's definitely not a meteorite that you found.
Yeah. You mean from our good friend Chuck?
That's right.
Percentage of them, not.
Okay.
99%.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was why I was mentioning, a meteor wrong, because the majority of them are meteor wrongs. They are not meteorites. But that's not to say that, because people do find meteorites and they really are meteorites. And I'm not an expert meteorite hunter. I've been out in the field with some years ago. But yeah, most universities will have the technical means to determine whether or not it is a meteorite.
Yeah. And a lot of times they might be, it might be ejecta, what's the term?
Tektites?
Tektites.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
I know there's lots of, there's some tektite fields around us, and there's, lots of old farmers that call them meteorites, but it's ejecta.
So we just had Leonids, or they peaked the other day, right? Did anything big come in, or for the Taurids over Halloween, the beginning of the month?
Nothing. I've heard. I heard there was some fireball sightings, but nothing, that like wiped out a major city or anything.
Somebody would chase down and find what actually came in and burned up. So,
yeah, we're at the latter stages of the Leonids now, which peak about the 17th. The next meteor stream we've got is the Geminids, and oftentimes the Geminids can be pretty spectacular. How many of you guys know the progenitor object? It may not actually be a comet, maybe an asteroid or some weird hybrid that is the progenitor of the Geminid meteor stream.
Oh, it's kind of a weird name.
Well, it's a name taken from a
Giacobini or something.
The comet. perhaps, but there's an object in there that may be, and it's named after a famous Greek myth. We were speaking of Russ in the chariot earlier. What myth?
What, Phaeton?
Phaeton, yeah.
Okay.
Man, I was
Geminids
hoping
fading.
the chat would bail us out, but they didn't, you guys.
Yeah,
They
thanks,
got like a-
chat. Appreciate it.
They got a delay.
Phaeton.
Not fast enough.
Phaeton appears to be a sun grazer, and it's come very close to the sun, sometimes without outgassing, which makes it appear that it might be something other than just a piece of a comet nucleus. I don't know.
Yep.
Okay. Do we have more questions?
We do. Someone unseen, $10 says, howdy from Sydney, Australia. About time for a lunar talk. Cheers. Love the shows and clips.
Thank you from Australia.
Overdue.
It is about time. There's yes, but you know, I've been putting a few things out this past 6 months or so that I've been dropping some breadcrumbs, some serious breadcrumbs to sort of prepare the mass psychology of a revelation that could cause the planet to tilt on its axis. That's been my main concern. I've been holding back because I don't want to release this information and then the planet flips on its axis in response.
See before school. Hint.
Yeah, there we go. I did put some stuff out there, but yeah, it's well, there's many reasons, not many, but a few reasons why I've been sort of holding back. Only because, like, in my mind, I'm going, no, this is just too effing weird. I gotta get a little bit better handle on this. This can't be. It's just too weird. But then again, maybe it isn't so weird. Maybe it is an explanation for something that has been long forgotten.
What's that quote? It's like, it's easier to explain the non-existence of the moon than it is the existence of the moon. Something like that.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Definite weirdities.
There are weirdities. That's
Weirdities.
Yes. That's a new term that we need to add to our lexicon, along with squigliosity.
Oh, that's got a firm place.
All right. Sig Hansen, $20 says, hey, Randall, it's Sid the Kid from the Montana trip.
Sid the Kid, yeah. I remember Sid the Kid. Hey, Sid the Kid.
Did you get my email, good sir? I would be delighted to correspond with you and pick your brain some more about the driftless.
The driftless, yes. We should do that. Do you know what he's talking about there, guys? The driftless?
Nope.
Shelley wants to know too.
Who does?
A bunch of people. Shelley, that was also just on the Cumberland trip.
Oh, the driftless. Okay,
she lives close up there.
For that, I am going to go to Google Maps and I'll show you what the driftless is. The driftless is a region that it's in southwestern Wisconsin, southeastern Minnesota, and northeastern Iowa. And I'll show it to you here. I'll pull it up on a relief map so you can get the idea. Okay, let's go to terrain view. Okay, and zoom in. All right, here we go. So now I will do a share screen. Screen 1. Share. Are we seeing this now?
Yep.
Got it.
Map.
Okay, good. All right. So now what I want you to do is I want you to notice that the ground is pretty flat. When you look here, like Chippewa Falls over to Marshfield, it's pretty flat. When you come over here, Rochester and West, it's pretty flat. But right in this area, you can see there is this whole eroded terrain, right, that's been deeply incised by water flows. Now, what's interesting about the driftless area is that during the multiple phases of the Wisconsin Ice Age, you had lobes of ice that came down Like you had the superior lobe came down this way, covered, this south central Minnesota. That's one reason it's flat. First of all, when you have a lobe of ice coming across, it does tend to flatten things out. And then as it recedes back, oftentimes, or even when it's progressing forward, you'll have huge sheets of outwash, right? So oftentimes what happens is you'll have a hummocky terrain that will, say, be formed by moraine, and then just beyond the hummocky moraine, you'll have a flat area, which was flattened either by glacier or by the outwash, the sheet of water outwashing, right? Now, during these successive glaciations, you had ice that came down the Michigan lobe, you had ice that came down here, and in some of the larger glaciations, the ice actually coalesced south of the driftless area here. So Chicago would have been under that ice, this part of Wisconsin. And so, interestingly, the driftless area would have been like an island completely surrounded on all sides by ice sheets. Now, it's called driftless because back in the 19th century, what we now call till was originally called drift. And the reason it was called drift is because a lot of those early geologists and earth scientists, like, and this is even pre-Civil War period, were looking at this stuff and they saw it being the result of water deposition. Later, it became glacial deposition. So it went from, okay, all this stuff here is deposited by water to all this stuff is deposited by glaciation. But now we have a term, because in reality, we have to look at glaciers and water, and we've talked about this term, glaciofluvial, right? So now, had the glaciers come down over this landscape, it would have been bulldozed flat. It would have been just a flat region across here. But it's dissected by water from the melting glaciers, but it was never bulldozed off by the glaciers themselves. And so what you have is this region that is perhaps hundreds of thousands of years old. Now, even though it's eroded by water, we can zoom in here and you can see there's many meltwater channels all throughout here. And then you can look at the Mississippi River Valley, and you can see that the Mississippi is a classic underfit river. Look at this here, right here. Here you've got, now there's so many lakes along here. Bear in mind that you're only 1,000 feet above sea level when you're up here in Minneapolis. And it's nearly 1,000 miles from Minneapolis to the Gulf. So you can see here, what are you dropping? You're dropping about a foot per mile. So that's a pretty shallow gradient. And so within the floor of the Mississippi Valley, you have lots of areas where you have shallow, marshy areas. There are several dams down in here, so they also create lakes. But if you want to get the size, you can see that this is essentially the size of the Mississippi River here. And then you can compare the modern Mississippi to the size of the channel that it left behind, the glacial meltwater channel that it left behind here. And so you can go down here like this, and you've got the flat floodplain. The modern floodplain is the ancient deposition of the sediment. And look at here, look at the Chippewa River, same thing. There you've got another example of an underfit river. So the channel that modern Chippewa is flowing in is much bigger than the river itself. And this channel was not created by the river meandering back and forth. Like, well, you can see right here, you can see look at this. Here you can see this meandering back and forth. It was created by massive meltwater flows that carved the channel, and now the modern Chippewa River, or any river that ends up getting captured into an oversized channel, is pretty much now going to be confined to that channel from that point on. That's what we see happening here. So this is the driftless area. It's called driftless area because they did not find glacial drift. Does that make sense? In other words, they didn't find till in these valleys, which led them to believe then that the glaciers had not overrun this landscape. And it is a very, it's a very picturesque landscape. Very pastoral in there. Kind of reminds me like a little bit of Ireland or something. I bet you, let's see, Tracy City. Yeah. Kyle, would you put in driftless area? And
Sure.
let's see if we got some images here. Let me try.
Well,
this.
I can't share, so.
Oh, you can't share. Okay.
Yeah.
Driftless area. I actually have a lot of slides of the driftless area images, but I don't have them.
So there wasn't any like lateral moraine along the edges, or were you just saying down in the valleys?
Down in the valley. Yeah, no, there was no moraine at all. Okay, yeah, check this out. See what else we got here in the way of images and then there's a lot of this kind of stuff. And of course, this is from water erosion. That's what I was saying, is all throughout the driftless area, you have these extraordinarily eroded rock formations. We saw stuff not unlike this in the Cumberland Plateau.
I think we probably went to that park. That's near that
I think you're right.
place that Matt knew last time.
Yeah.
Starved Rock.
Starved Rock,
Was
yeah.
that the Illinois River.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, and here's what I was saying, it's quite pastoral, or pastoral, I think would be the correct pronunciation. Look at this. Let's see this. I think I have a picture of you, maybe not on that rock, but a similar one. But yeah, you can see here's some of the channels within the driftless area. It's kind of a magical area, and I think it would be a cool thing. I've been talking to.
Oh, sorry.
Well, I was talking to Scott Wolter about doing a Midwestern tour, and we were talking about the driftless areas being on that tour. So yeah, here we go. Here's another.
That one just made me think of Devil's Canyon there in Wisconsin.
Yes.
But I don't know if the lake is that big.
Yeah. So you can see here some of the sheer walls that were carved by the glacial meltwater runoff. Okay,
Yeah,
here's
there's definitely a tour, waiting to be organized for that
area
too.
Oh yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah, and here you can kind of see how the hilly area. And so, yeah, that's the interesting thing about it, is why was it not overridden by the glaciers?
It's like Palouse Hills with some trees there almost.
Yeah, well, it wasn't going to let me open this one. But yeah, you can see it's quite picturesque and beautiful in the driftless area. A lot of farms. There's a lot of fertile soil on the valley bottoms.
The dairy farms and cheese.
Yes, lots of cheese. So yeah, maybe we could include, if we do a tour of the driftless area, like they have the tours that do wine tastings, we could do cheese tastings.
Done.
Yeah, so this kind of gives you this is so now hopefully people have a little bit better idea of the driftless area. It's pretty cool.
Get out there,
we've been
Sid.
up there.
Send us some photos, Sid.
Yeah, look at this. Yeah, I mean, it's quite beautiful, and it's a striking landscape. It very much is. So there we go. How about that?
All right. Okay, shall we move on?
Tour within
Let's
a tour.
move on.
Okay. This is Dung is Fun, $5, says, Randall, I believe that the dirt will never lie to you, but people will. And old books will also by censoring. Interesting. I've found that a lot of times old books have less censoring on some stuff.
That's kind of what I've found.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure I know what to make of that.
The earth will never lie, but people will. I think that's what I'll just take from that.
Yeah, okay. I'll buy that.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay,
all right. God's Cop.
Okay.
The police of God show up with $10, say, if the elements of life travel the universe via comets, etc., and then some of them fall into black holes. Could life exist in black holes? Best wishes for a happy holiday to all. Thanks so much for what you do.
Oh, wow. I don't know. The answer to that question is a little bit beyond my pay grade at this point. We have been discussing the possibility of a tour, scheduling a tour to a black hole. But we're trying to find the appropriate.
We're going to have Bradley go out there and stand at the event horizon so we can take his picture for scale.
Yeah.
Spaghettified. I can't wait.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, if the tidal forces are so great at the event horizon that maybe, all of the biological stuff would just be destroyed.
That's what I would have to think. It would, everything would be destroyed on the atomic and subatomic
just
level.
Being ripped apart. The molecules being ripped apart.
Well, and it's weird too, because if you take in the time dilation stuff and the fact that it becomes subjective what happens, then yes, if you're the thing falling in, you get ripped apart. But if you're watching something get fallen in, technically it never actually completely fully reaches it. Yeah. It's weird. Yeah. Time dilation.
I would say what's on the other side. Yeah, nothing's living in it, but what's on the other side of it?
Could it be when you come out on the other side, you're reassembled?
I think you might break on through
to the other
side. Oh man.
Okay.
Like a door.
Kind of like a door.
Okay. And who's playing lead guitar on that?
Fuck if I know. I can't remember their names.
Krieger.
Robbie, I did actually see the Doors live in concert back in 1968.
Wow.
That was
cool for you.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
My street cred just went up a notch.
Yeah.
Autobiography. another book.
But you know what I remember the most about it was Jim Morrison pretty much laid up on the stage through a lot of it, laying there singing as he's laying there on the stage, right?
Tripping.
Probably.
Or so he doesn't trip. He has tripped, so he can't trip.
All right, Jason takes $20, says, what's your thought on pole shifts? New rabbit hole I have entertained. Was curious about your thoughts.
Okay, I had a lot of thoughts on that. We've talked about pole shifts quite a bit. We've all drawn from the well of research by Charles Hapgood. You guys even did a whole podcast on Charles Hapgood's book, right? Couple of podcasts. Yeah. So my take on pole shift is that, and I've gone into this, I think somewhere else, I've kind of gone into the background. I discovered Charles Hapgood's work, I think in 1978. I've told the story how I found it at a library used book sale for like $1 or something, hard copy. It's right back there on my shelf somewhere. And I set out to find as many of in fact, this was my first attempt actually to track down as many of Hapgood's references as I could get my hands on. And I did get a majority of them, and it took me over a year to do it. But he proposed the idea of a crustal shift. His idea of a pole shift was a crustal shift, that the crust moved with respect to the mantle, right? Okay, so after considering that for quite a long time and reviewing various critiques of the idea, I no longer believed that so like others before him, he postulated there was a catastrophe or a series of great catastrophes in Earth history. And he documented that quite thoroughly way back, even in going back to what was his first one? Earth shifting crust, right?
Yes.
And then that was followed by Path of the Pole, which was the one on
a revised version of the original Earth shifting crust. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So just like with Velikovsky, I think his catastrophism has stood the test of time. What has been challenged, though, is his scenario for triggering the catastrophe. And he was seeing a crustal shift. And my thought is that, yes, we would have, in a sense, he was proposing a moving crust before plate tectonics or continental drift was even an accepted explanation for, lots of things, drifting, orogenesis, all of that. my thought now is that, and if I was going to talk about this in detail, it would be great to have a globe or anything spherical to show what I'm talking about here. But the point is, I'll try to make it really quick because I've explained this in detail elsewhere. If you've got 7,926 miles being the equatorial diameter and 7,900 miles being the polar diameter, it means that the Earth is 26 miles wider at the equator than it is at the pole, which means that if you're going from the Earth's center of mass to the surface, you got to dig. If you're digging your way out, let's say you're at the center of the Earth, Kyle, and you want to dig your way out, dig it to the pole because you'll save 13 miles of digging. Right?
That's a great point. Appreciate that advice.
Yes. So that would be my advice to you. And the other thing is, the way to think of this now is that, and if you're traveling from the equator to the North or South Pole, you're traveling downhill 13 miles. Okay, so now the Earth is spinning, and it's an oblate spheroid, and there's an equilibrium, more or less an equilibrium, between two things. There's two components here: the latitude, the distance from the equator, and the distance to the Earth's center of mass. Now, what happens if that one of those two parameters change? I think that it could provoke a response in the other parameter. So, in other words, let's say that you have an accumulation of glacial mass, and it crushes the continent, the underlying land mass, thousands of feet closer to the Earth's center of mass. Then let's say that over 10,000 or 20,000 years, the Earth is attempting to adjust to this disequilibrium that would be induced by this vertical movement, right? Sea level falls, right? Sea bottom rises because of the release of weight. Land surface under the glaciers moves closer to the Earth's center of mass. Okay, so now think about this. If you have, let's say, the deglaciation of North America rebounds by a couple of thousand feet. Now it's not in equilibrium with its latitude anymore, is it? Right? If it's moved further away. So now really where it wants to be is going to be closer to the equator. So what I would speculate, and I would need to talk to a geophysicist about this to run the math on it, is it possible that under certain circumstances that disequilibrium could actually provoke accelerated plate tectonics, where the plates of the Earth are attempting to reestablish equilibrium consistent with their distance from the equator relative to their distance from the Earth's center of mass? So if that is the case, if that's a possibility, then I would put a pole shift as being a slower event than has been postulated by some, is that it's a rapid, almost geologically instantaneous event. And it would be perhaps something that would take over thousands of years, maybe 1,000 to 3,000 or 4,000 or 5,000 years, just as isostatic compensation is still going on, which the Hudson Bay area is still rising. It's still moving away from the Earth's center of mass. You see what I'm saying? The further it moves away from the Earth's center of mass, the further it's going to be out of equilibrium with its adjusted latitudinal position. Does that make sense, what I'm trying to say here? Just say yes and let's move on.
Yeah, makes total sense.
Okay.
Without moving on, though,
go ahead.
Excuse me for a second, Kyle. Just, if he's just starting to learn about whoever asked the question, though, it's important to differentiate, if he doesn't have the terms precise, because if he's looking into a wandering geomagnetic pole and a pole reversal, that's a very different scenario and action than what you're describing right now.
That's exactly what I was going to point out. We're talking about crustal shifting.
Yes.
So if you were standing in a town and and the crust shifted, you would be further away or closer to the geographic pole.
Yes.
You're not talking about the actual. So the ball is still spinning in the same way. The crust on the outside is just moving around. We're not talking about the poles itself. Like changing its
The
angle.
geographic poles.
Yes.
We're not talking about the geographic poles. Or we are talking about the geographic poles. We're not talking about the geomagnetic pole.
Right. Or the angle
Those are two
of
different
the pole,
things.
The angle of the pole of the globe in reference to the solar system or the sun. We're talking about the crust
spin axis
sliding around on the exterior of this spinning ball.
Yes. Crustal shift. We're talking about a crustal displacement.
Yep.
Yes.
Right. And I thought you were, and it is important to emphasize that, when you're talking about the pole, the geographic pole is that North Pole around which everything is turning. The geomagnetic pole is different. And the geomagnetic pole roughly coincides with the geographic poles, but it actually wanders. And that's when you go out and you're using a directional compass and the hand is pointing to the north. What it's doing is pointing towards the geomagnetic pole. And in fact, you have to make adjustments for different positions on the surface of the Earth because of the fact, I think right now, the geomagnetic pole is something like 500 miles displaced from the geographic pole. So the closer you would get to the pole itself, the greater is going to be that deviation between magnetic pole and geographic pole. Remember, magnetic pole is the Earth's magnetic field, which has a North Pole and a South Pole, and the geographic pole is actually the axis of spin.
Right.
Okay. That's why we did an 11-part series on it on Brothers of the
That's
Serpent
right.
podcast.
Yes.
There's
a
22
complicated
hours
subject.
of talking about this subject.
So yes, I think we would suggest go to those episodes.
Yeah. I'm
11
still going
hours?
through them. It's
Wow.
good stuff.
11
Yeah,
episodes,
11
22 hours.
11 episodes.
You
What?
too
Oh
can
my-
become an 11er if you listen to all of them. You'll get the 11er tag in the Discord.
We just go through Hapgood's book in detail, read excerpts from it, and discuss it, and try to understand it, and argue with it.
I might have to check that out.
It's
Sounds
great.
good. Yeah, that was one of my favorite books, and
It's
it
awesome.
really was a milestone book for me, because that's the book that really led me from sort of just a kind of a vague interest in catastrophism to really getting obsessed with catastrophism. That was the book that did it for me. And you can tell, I mean, if I read the book and then I go to the reference and go, I got to hunt down every one of these references. And so, that led to that year-long, heading to the libraries, heading up to the stacks, going to the interlibrary loan. And a lot of that is right up there. A lot of those references from Hapgood are right up there.
Yeah, he does a great job of, describing the science of the time, at least, like all of the physics of the internal workings of the Earth as they had understood it at that time. It's just fascinating.
It is.
It is really
It's a
great.
good read. It's a very
And
good
again, the title, is that Path of the Pole, or which
Path of
one
the
are you?
Pole.
Yeah.
Path of the Pole, Charles Hapgood.
He also wrote what was it? The Ancient Sea Kings.
Yeah, Maps of the Ancient Sea Kings.
Ancient Sea Kings, which is a good one as well. Okay.
Fantastic book, too.
What else we got?
Okay, Nick Spratt gave $5, no comment. Thank you, Nick.
But then he forgot to put his comment in there.
Is that what happened?
Yeah, and then he
Did you see what the
Thank you,
comment
Nick.
was supposed to be?
I saw that I forgot to put my comment in there.
Well,
Cheese move.
Disabled
Sorry,
Megatron, $5 says, unrelated. If another event is coming, people should focus on planting more perennial food sources everywhere they can. Turn yards into food sources.
I'm totally in agreement with that. I think we should do that. We don't know when the next event is coming, but because we don't know, it could be sooner or it could be later. But if we're prudent, we're going to plan for sooner rather than later. And I agree totally with that. We should be doing that. And, cities could become urban farms. They should, so we're not dependent upon the supply chains for our food. We had a little foretaste of what it's like when those supply chains start getting interrupted.
Yeah.
So, I'm wholeheartedly about that.
Okay, Rex Strigo, $20 says, when is Contact at the Moon? And where do I go for tickets? Can't wait.
Well, Artemis 2 will be going up this next year, and that's going to fly some astronauts around the moon, bring them back. And then in 2025, if everything goes good with Artemis 2, Artemis 3 is going to land astronauts on the moon. So I'm looking forward to that for multiple reasons.
So we need to call up SpaceX and set up moon vans, right?
Yeah.
Do a tour up there, contact the
Large
moon.
window moon vans.
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Well, I think isn't the Biden administration now trying to dissuade people from
Looking at the moon.
doing business with SpaceX?
Maybe.
Because SpaceX is owned by Elon, and Elon is not censoring Twitter enough for the Biden administration. So they've been coming out trying to tell people, do not invest in SpaceX. We'll have to check that out. I haven't followed up on that. I just kind of heard
Yeah, I'm
that.
not sure.
They just recently launched that giant rocket in South Padre, Texas. I saw some videos of it. It was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I got to go see one of those things, man.
Yeah, I want to see one of the launches. Yeah.
I know. I'd love to do that.
All right, moving on. We're still going in chronological order of these super chats here. Gabriel, $10, says, what are your thoughts about Edward Case? Okay, I think he means Edgar Casey's readings on Atlantis's location. Bimini comes up. Hancock did go film those submerged walls/roads. Wouldn't that location be affected by the rising sea level?
Oh, absolutely, it would be. In fact, from my understanding, Bimini was above, was sub-aerial, to use the term, during the Ice Age. I think it's only like, 40, 50 feet below the surface?
Not even.
I mean, yeah, it's like 25, 26 maybe. It's pretty
so
shallow,
Yeah, it was shallow, so it was above. So, yeah. Well, here's the thing. Let's go if there was an Atlantis, and if it was a maritime culture, and if it was based in the central Atlantic in the region of the Azores, and if Plato's detail is accurate, that they were, they were engaged in extensive maritime operations, well, yeah, it only makes sense that there would have been many outlying areas that would have come under the purview of Atlantis. If you're talking about an Atlantean empire, if you have a seafaring civilization, which is not out of the question, because we know that people were migrating to islands 50 and 60,000 years ago, conservatively. So they had some kind of navigational and seafaring skills that long ago. So it's not out of the question that people could have found their way to the Azores Islands 50,000 years ago or 20,000 years ago, or whatever the case may be, and had those skills. And that there's nothing science fiction-y or outlandish about a scenario in which you could have had a fairly highly evolved seafaring culture. And this is what I've said before, maybe like some along the lines of the Phoenicians or the Minoans, but perhaps even more advanced, because if you've got 5,000 or 10,000 years to evolve a society, yeah, they could have had ships all over the world.
Do you think it's too science fiction-y if there's evidence that this ancient civilization may have been very advanced, maybe not spaceships, but perhaps as advanced in precision and machinery as we are in some cases?
No, I wouldn't. Well, certainly, I don't think I've seen no evidence that they were like based on fossil fuels.
No,
now,
maybe not fossil fuels. But
if we're going just on Plato's
okay.
description, he doesn't describe machinery, but certainly they're advanced, because the scale of their engineering works would have been phenomenal, what he describes. But we know that phenomenal scale engineering works were certainly not out of the skill set and capabilities of ancient cultures. I mean, we know that. So now the question of technology is a separate question. And I think that evidence is emerging now that, yeah, there were cultures that had technological capabilities, but those technological capabilities didn't really necessarily look anything like our modern technological capabilities. And if we're looking for the kinds of things that we would now consider to be advanced industrially or, culturally or whatever. And we're looking for that. We're looking basically in a mirror for what may have been going on 10,000 or 20 or 30,000 years ago. We could miss it entirely.
But there are these stone vases that are extremely precise, and a lot of them have been getting scanned, and they have precision that is down to the,
that one would think that machines of some kind were involved.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Ben is making a pretty strong case there.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying is that, just from Plato himself, he doesn't give any indication of that, although maybe it's implicit because of the fact that he clearly does describe a civilization that had tremendous engineering capability.
Right.
But as far as other things, spaceships, no, he doesn't say anything about spaceships. Nope. But
just chariots in the sky.
I mean, this brings us right back to the idea of the plasma technology, which is, the more I'm learning, the more it seems a feasible explanation to me for the basis of an ancient technology that would not look anything like our fossil fuel based technology. And given what we now know about plasmas and what they're capable of and what their properties are, it would seem a natural that there would be technological potential in the control of plasmas and the creation of plasmoids, which are self-perpetuating clusters of homeostatic plasmas that have self-organized and are then capable of transmitting electromagnetic energy once they form, the toruses and so on. I'm learning about that. A lot of people are learning about that now. And the more I learn about it, the more it seems to me like a plausible explanation. And at some point I'm not ready to do it yet, but my analysis of the Vajra as an implement of plasma technology and what we now know about the control and influencing of random plasma streams into these coherent self-organized structures and what becomes possible once that is accomplished. So yeah, I mean, at some point, yeah, let's do a whole conversation on that. Maybe we'll even get George in on it, because George, he was over in Zurich, and he's headed to India because there's going to be a conference on plasma technology coming up in India in December. So he's headed over to India for that, and that was set up by the India Foundation. That conversation, what I had with Tom Carpenter and Malcolm Bendel when I was in Florida, which is very low quality, but there is a higher quality version of that because it was recorded on both ends. And the one that most people are seeing online was recorded on India's end, and I don't know why it's it's low quality, but it's very fuzzy. But still, the conversation comes through and you can get it. And so after that conversation, which was, I believe, last
right
February
ago.
Was it a whole year ago now? I think it was in February or March. I think it was after the appearance on Joe Rogan, the February appearance that didn't get aired, I think. But anyways, it's up there. Tom Carpenter, he went back. He was head of the India Foundation, and he went back and reported to the Indian government. And I think so. As a result of that, that led to an invitation to this conference that's coming up next month. And there was testing done in Zurich, just like there was testing done in Albuquerque at the Tesla Tech. Testing that's being done right now has been done and is currently being undertaken in Raleigh at a major institution, research institution. I think out of the Zurich conference, there's a licensing going to a Georgia firm to begin manufacturing some of the implements, some of the machines in Germany. And I don't have the latest on that, but I bet you George could give us an update on that. So we might ought to plan a podcast after he returns from India to get his report on that. I think that would be very interesting.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And I'm speaking of George Howard here, our good friend George Howard, organizer of the Cosmic Summit, which you guys are going to be there next year, right?
That's right.
Planning on it.
Yeah.
Good.
As far as I know.
Yeah.
We're on the list.
You're on the list. Yeah, I mean, the last one was a whole lot of fun, very interesting, very stimulating, and I think the next one's going to be even better.
Yeah,
So,
I think
yeah.
so.
Oh yeah, for
Yes,
sure.
it will.
Yeah.
It's just going to get better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and George Howard, he's also the one of the primary founders of the Comet Research Group, and he runs the website Cosmic Tusk, and we've had him on as a guest on the Cosmographia show at least several times now.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, we're out of time, but we have a bunch more comments, questions, and donations. You think you want to take one more here, Randall, and then I'll just...
I'm good. I'm no hurry to get anywhere.
All right. Harry Toe 1 gives $20. Says, "Hey, Randall, what do you think of Pope Francis's approval of a decision that forbids Catholics from joining Freemasonry?"
Oh, that. Well, I mean, that's been kind of what they've been doing for what?
Long time, right? Yeah.
A long time,
Yeah.
yeah. Which is interesting, because I've heard people say, well, Freemasons don't let Catholics become Masons, and that's completely backwards. Freemasons would totally welcome Catholics. It comes from the Catholic authorities that you Catholics, if you're Catholic, you can't join Freemasonry. But the Freemasons are totally okay with Catholics joining. So it's completely lopsided. It's completely coming. The prohibition against Catholics joining Freemasonry does not come from Freemasonry. It comes from the Catholics. And I think the primary reason for that is that Freemasonry tends to be non-aligned with any specific religion. They present a model, if you will, of the Creator as being a great architect and a grand geometrician. But beyond that, you adapt that concept to your own religion, whether you're Christian or Jew or Muslim or any other religious faith. And we even find, in my lectures, I've shown many examples of, like, from ancient China, showing the creator gods wielding the instruments of geometry, right? The square, the compass, the plumb bob, and so on, the architects and the geometricians' implements. So I think if you're a religious fundamentalist, you object to Freemasonry because of that sort of universal view and that acceptance that there's an authentic divine tradition has been found in world religions from all over the world, basically, and that no one religion has a monopoly on the truth. And so from the fundamentalist perspective, that's a bad thing, because what characterizes fundamentalism of any religion? Well, we have a monopoly on the truth. We know the truth, and everybody else, is mistaken.
Haven't you said that's like one of the first things that a government would do that's trying to control its people before it gets in some conflict, is to close down or shut down the Masonic lodges?
Oh, yeah. I mean, history has shown over and over again that when despots and dictators take over one of a country, one of the first things they do is they shut down Masonic lodges, which completely contradicts the notion that it's the Masons that are, the puppet masters controlling everything around the world, which is really laughably absurd when you look at it and you know anything about the craft. It's childish and ridiculous. And in my personal opinion, the people that promote that silliness are idiots.
Isn't it like, I don't know if there's a word, but like prerequisite to actually become a Mason, that you do believe that there is some higher power? Which you can define that however, like you said, and put it into whatever religion you want to adhere to.
If you're an atheist,
right?
Yeah, there's really no point to the whole system if you're an atheist, because what it does is it really puts forward sort of a rational concept of a creator, of God, that's not so abstruse or abstract that it's just utterly nebulous, right? Ask any fundamentalist, ask a Christian, you believe in God? Yes. Okay, define that God. Well, that God is indefinable. How do you define God? What is God? Did God create the universe? Well, what power, what entity could create the universe? I mean, we're getting into some really complicated territory here, but in Freemasonry, there is a very kind of a satisfying conceptual idea of God as an architect. And from that, so God is described as the great architect and as the grand geometrician. So from that, you can now extrapolate that creation is an act of architecture, an act of geometry. And that to me is a very intellectually satisfying way to think about the created world, the created universe that is in no way contradicted by the findings of science. And from where I'm standing, it almost looks to me like more and more science is proving that it's not just a random, meaningless event or thing. This existence that we think of as the world, the universe, or whatever scale you want to look at it. And that's one of the fundamental ideas of Freemasonry, is that when we look at creation, there is design inherent within creation. And because of the design, there is intelligence. Now, how is that intelligence codified? How is it visualized? How is it imagined? Well, that's kind of left open. But the idea is you can take the fundamental concept of God as a geometrician. Who was it? Kepler said God geometrizes. I mean, in my sacred geometry lectures, I have multiple quotes from very famous scientists and theologians and metaphysicians and philosophers who are looking at creation as being a handiwork, if you will. Also think of God as a divine craftsman. So these are ways of getting your conceptual, your ability to conceive of something which is really inconceivable, but which ultimately leads to the idea that there is meaning embedded in all of creation, that it is not meaningless, which would follow from the atheistic point of view. There's no point in atheists really becoming Freemasons because the intellectual satisfaction would not be there. Now, I've just heard that there's some low-life scumbag that went in and joined the Freemasons, secretly recorded the degree work, and he's been putting it online. And to me, that's just, there's a reason why there is the secrecy. There's several reasons. One, because for centuries, if you were a member of anything, any order or organization outside the authoritarian framework of the church or whoever the religious authorities, well, you were subject to suppression, even death, burning at the stake, hanging, torture. So historically, anybody outside that framework of the authoritarian system that dominated society at the time was in danger, right? So you had to be secret. You had to meet in secret. It's just like, when the founding fathers were plotting the revolution, they had to meet in secret, right? When they were plotting the creation of America, because if they had been found out, they would have been hung by the British. But the second thing is that there is it's a powerful mystery play that has been preserved by the Masonic craft. It's loaded with symbolism. It's loaded with knowledge. I believe a lot of that knowledge is very scientific. It comes from an ancient time, has been handed down for centuries, perhaps even millennia, to reach our own time. Now, when a candidate for initiation goes into the craft, and you go through that process of initiation, the purpose of that, and if it's done properly, it becomes a very profound spiritual experience, right? But the power of that experience lies in the fact that you don't really know the details and the specifics as it's unfolded to you. It's very much like, I use the analogy, you're going to see a really interesting, like a movie, a mystery drama movie that has a major plot twist at the end, right? Think of what is the Bruce Willis movie again?
Sixth Sense.
Sixth Sense. Yeah. Okay. Now, I enjoyed the hell out of that movie, and what made it really, which really put that exclamation point up on my enjoyment of it, was the twist at the end when you realize, and then you put all the pieces together and you go, oh yeah, I can see it now. I can see that it was all leading up to this realization that, spoiler alert, that Bruce Willis was actually dead.
Oh my
right?
God.
That he would ghost.
I can't believe you just spoiled that movie for everyone.
I did. I think everybody knows by this time. But no, but that's kind of a feeble analogy, but it kind of gets the point I'm trying to get across, is that the power of the Masonic rituals is mitigated. It's watered down if you go in there ahead of time, already knowing exactly what's going to happen. You know, if you know that there are plot twists throughout the thing, and then the end of it is the culmination is that it leads you into this realization of certain things. But if it's done right, if it's done by master ritualists, the experience is a very powerful psychological and emotional experience. Now, what this asshole is doing that went in there and recorded it and putting it online, well, what he's doing is, for however many people watch that, it's almost like he's gone on this hey, look how awesome I am because I'm revealing the end of the movie here. Major spoiler alert. I'm going to spoil this potentially for millions of young men that might otherwise be joining this fraternity. So you got to be a real sleaze to do with this guy. I wish I knew his name, but that's kind of the thing about Freemasonry. I don't know how we got on that diatribe, but I feel better now.
Good. That's the whole point of
for
these live shows, yeah, just to make you feel better.
To make
That
me
and,
feel better,
yeah.
yes.
Thanks for that explanation. That's
That was
cool.
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we are out of time.
This is it.
Yes.
This is really it now, huh?
Yeah, this is it.
Okay.
But yeah, man, that was great. Answered a lot of questions. Thanks to everybody who donated.
Definitely. Many thanks, y'all. Yep. Good stuff, Randall.
Yeah, and I got a lot of more good stuff here that we just didn't even get into. And one of the things I would like to get into with you guys in a future one, especially since you're the name of your company now is the Holocene Group, right?
Holocene.
Yeah.
Just the Holocene. Well, I got some really interesting stuff, juicy stuff about the Holocene.
All right.
That'd be worth talking about.
Heck yeah.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Well,
Do it again.
as always, I enjoyed the hell out of it, guys.
Yes.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks to
Thanksgiving
the
this
chat. Thanks to Ben from Uncharted X was in there helping us mod. Thank you, buddy. Really appreciate
thanks,
that.
Ben.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Peter.
And thanks to Peter.
And
Yes.
as always,
brother.
Peter.
Everyone
everybody.
who supported the
Yeah.
show. Thank you guys so much.
right.
RandallCarlson.com
We need y'all.
is the
Peter,
website.
quick message to Peter. We had some discussions on a retreat, and I'm going to be following up with you, Peter, on some of our discussions we had.
All right.
I haven't forgotten.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.
Guys, good night.
Ciao.